Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Last Word Sports. I'm your host, Fletcher Ferris, here with Scott Gevertz, and today we're going to be giving you our NFL tier lists.
Yeah, so we've done power rankings in the past, and we thought power rankings were a good system, to kind of show like the hierarchy of the NFL teams. But we've been thinking about it a lot. Wanted to give you guys some content that's more accessible, easier for you to listen to, not just us talking 32 teams through, and gets a little boring long. So what we did is we kind of broke down our teams into tiers. Fletch and I each have our own tier list with our own individualized tiers and teams, and we're going to kind of guide you guys through how teams are developing, what they're looking to, and which teams are Super Bowl contenders and which teams are not. So, with no further ado, Fletch, would you like to get started? We're going to work our way from the bottom up in terms of the tiers. So, Fletch, start us off with your lowest tier.
Yeah, so my lowest tier, I'm pretty sure Scotty's is the same way. I have a single tier dedicated to the New York Jets because, well, they're probably the worst team we've ever seen in the NFL. I'm talking worse than the '08 Lions and worse than the '16 Browns. They are an atrocity.
I will say this for the Jets. By the way, I have a tier at the bottom of my list that is reserved just for the Jets, too. They're way worse than any other team in the league. They're the only winless team. But I like Joe Douglas. Some of his draft picks, Kai Becton has seemed really good so far. Denzel Mims looked like he had potential in the Patriots game once he got healthy. And they're going to get a ton of draft picks. They've got capital from the Jamal Adams trade. They've got the number one pick. I trust Joe Douglas. They have an optimistic future. They're going to suck this year really bad. But Gase will be gone. The whole staff will be gone. Sam Darnold will probably be gone. And they'll just reboot. So they're not as bad as some of these other teams who are stuck in limbo and can't find a quarterback and can't win a Super Bowl, in terms of moving forwards. But this year, they are just horrible. Not going to win a game.
Yeah, no, I don't understand how Adam Gase kept his job longer than Bill O'Brien did this year.
Yeah, I think they just wanted to give the players some consistency throughout the season before they just reboot everything at the end of the year, just to see how guys develop without kind of having to throw new coordinators at them and stuff. But honestly, I would have fired Gase after week 2.
Me too. Yeah. I would have never hired him to begin with. But anyways, moving on to our next tiers. What's yours, Scotty?
So my next tier is teams that are rebuilding. These are teams that, even though they may not admit they're rebuilding, for me, this tier has 5 teams. I have Jacksonville, I have Dallas, I have Washington, I have Detroit, and I have Denver. And the reason why I put those 5 teams in, there are some other teams that you can put in that tier too. But I have another sort of rebuilding tier. This one for me is teams that are a quarterback away, or in the case of the Cowboys, are really just a hot mess. Because when I look at Jacksonville, they are like the Jets, but a little bit better of an organization in terms of coaching, a couple more talented young players, and they've won a game this year. But I think they're going to reboot, get a new quarterback. That's why they're at the bottom. The Washington football team, they've got some nice young players too, but they're 2-7. They haven't really been able to win very many games, and they have a 38-year-old Alex Smith starting at quarterback. Dwayne Haskins is out. They're probably going to draft a quarterback in this year's draft to kind of rebuild. Denver, they haven't been that bad this year, but the last couple weeks, Drew Lock has been horrible. It's looking like they're going to move on from him and try to go in a different direction. And on top of that, they kind of eliminated themselves from the playoff hunt, but they aren't an ascending young rebuilding team. They're trending downwards, so that's why I put them in this tier. Same thing with Detroit, who a couple weeks ago was still sort of in the playoff mix. I think now they're pretty much out of it. They still mathematically have a shot, but I think after this year, Matt Patricia will be gone. Matt Stafford might get moved. It'll be kind of a new organization. And Dallas. I think Dallas is at a really weird spot, but Zeke is regressing rapidly. They overpaid Jalen Smith, DeMarcus Lawrence, and Amari Cooper, who are good players but don't deserve the money they're making. So they don't have cap to go in other directions. And Dak wants a $40 million contract. He's a good quarterback. They're not going to win the Super Bowl. They're going to have a top 3 pick probably and are really going to think about drafting a Justin Fields type of player. So that's why I have them in that tier too, especially since also this year without Dak, they're a really bad team. Just they're not going to win very many games.
Yeah. So another thing touching on Dallas is that their offensive line Yeah, sure, they're experiencing injuries, but they're also rapidly regressing, and
That's actually a really good point.
their best offensive linemen are really getting up there in age. So if you have a top 5 draft pick, I would potentially look at getting someone like Penei Sewell
For sure.
and sort of
Yeah,
get that next dominant Cowboys lineman
that
for the
that
future.
offensive line used to be the foundation of their team, and now Travis Frederick's gone. Tyron Smith's getting up there in age. He's hurt. Zach Martin's getting up there in age. They don't have a very good line anymore. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
hurting Zeke.
It's sort of in shambles. But anyways, my next tier, it's pretty broad. It's below average too bad, just because I didn't want to have too many tiers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have the Detroit Lions, the New England Patriots, the New York Football Giants, the Cincinnati Bengals, the football team, the Falcons, the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Jaguars, and the Texans. And I'm not going to go through every team individually, but basically what I'm thinking about here is these teams are either rebuilding and they're bad, or they're just, they're a little below average. Like they're not necessarily out of the playoffs mathematically, but 95% chance they're not going to make it in. So like,
Mm-hmm.
teams like the Falcons, they have the foundations of a good team with a good solid franchise quarterback that's been there forever, top 3 receiver in the NFL, and then another top 10 wide receiver. It's just they can't put it together. And then like the Bengals, they're obviously trending upwards with Joe Burrow, who's probably right behind Justin Herbert for Rookie of the Year race.
Yeah, two
And
great
then
young players.
the Giants, who were in the hunt to potentially actually still make the playoffs, surprisingly,
My
because the
G man,
NFC
go Saquon, baby.
because the NFC East, I think all four of the NFC East are in this tier for me. And so, and then a couple of these teams are just trending downward in general. They're just getting worse. Like the Texans, they were contenders in the AFC South, and they just got worse and worse and worse. And then the Jaguars, they're really bad. They're just not
Yeah,
Jets bad, so I couldn't put them in a
they're
bottom
Oregon
tier.
State bad, bro.
Yeah, they're like
Really.
Oregon State bad. Yeah,
Okay, so for me, I have a second sort of rebuilding tier. That is where a lot of the teams you guys probably thought would be in the other tier show up. And to me, that is teams that are rebuilding, but are kind of a year ahead of schedule compared to the other teams. They've got a bit more optimism. They've shown some signs of progress. I've got the Bengals and Chargers there. Chargers are a ton of talent. They've got a phenomenal rookie quarterback. They've just lost a bunch of close games. I don't think they're going to kind of rebuild. They're probably going to fire their head coach, but otherwise they've got a solid team. I put the Texans in that tier too. They've lost a bunch of games. They're out of the playoff hunt now. But Deshaun Watson is probably a top 5, top 8 QB in the NFL.
for sure.
So they've got some pieces to build around. I put the Bengals there too. Young head coach, great young quarterback, like you mentioned, Burrow right behind Herbert. So they've got potential and optimism there. They played some good teams close. Been blown out by like Baltimore and Pittsburgh, but they beat Tennessee. Like they've shown some flashes. I put the Panthers there because they were 3-2. They've lost a bunch in a row now, but they'll probably draft a quarterback this year or next year. But Teddy Bridgewater is a good, serviceable starting quarterback. They've got some nice pieces. DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, Robbie Andrews, a really underrated receiving core. Christian McCaffrey is probably one of the best running backs in the league. And they spent all their picks on defense, and it's paid some dividends. They've had some nice young players like Jeremy Chin show up. And I also put my beloved G-Men in that tier because even though we're not that great, and I admit it, we've been trending up in the right direction recently. We've won 2 games in a row for the first time in a couple years. Well, I mean, we did it last year, but one was with Eli, one was with Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones had his first back-to-back no-turnover games in his career. He
Yeah.
had a 91 passer rating against the Eagles on Sunday, led the entire NFL that day. He's actually the 12th highest-graded QB according to PFF this year. His
Was that
stats
on
are
a scale to
misleading.
100?
Yeah, 0 to 100.
Okay.
It's not like the 0 to 150
Yeah,
passer rating.
the
Yeah,
156 one. Yeah, I was
yeah,
just curious.
that wouldn't be that high. But
Yeah, no.
anyways, Daniel Jones hasn't been as bad as the stats have looked. He's made some nice throws. The Tampa game, he was horrible, but otherwise, he's made some nice progress. And he can really run it, dude. I was like, that dude's an athlete. 34-yard touchdown run, pulling it against the Eagles yesterday. On Sunday. And so I think the Giants have a bit more optimism than other teams because it seems like they found the right head coach in Joe Judge. They're trending in the right direction. And they've got young talent. Guys like James Bradbury, Blake Martinez were nice free agent signings who have come in and made an impact too.
Yeah, it just sucked that a sniper had to shoot Daniel Jones a couple weeks ago on the field when he was running.
That was tough to watch.
All right. So moving on to the next year for me, it's sort of same deal-ish. It's my solid to injury issue tier. I added in the slash injury issue for just one team really. Uh, and it shouldn't be any surprise. But first up in this tier is the Browns, who are 6-3. But then you look at the rest of their division, they would be in a tier above, but they got the Ravens and the Steelers, who are both also doing really well this year. I just feel like they're going to sort of be the ugly duckling out of those three and miss out on the playoffs. And probably, I feel like the Ravens and the Steelers are going to separate from them down the stretch.
Yeah.
Following them, I got the Chargers, who I think are a much better team than what than what their record shows. They've lost a lot of close games to really good football teams. Really good football teams. They could be positive in a top 12 team in the NFL if they had just won a couple close games. Next is the Niners, who are the injury issues part of this list. They still got largely the same roster who was at that Super Bowl last year. But when the whole team is injured, of course they're going to lose. They've lost a few games ugly since all these injuries took place. So look for the Niners to get a nice high draft pick this year, get someone really good, really talented, and look to bounce back next year. They're still going to be a force for years to come, in my opinion. Next is the Vikings, who started off pretty slow but have sort of bounced back, but I don't think they're quite on that playoff tier. And then we got the Bears, who actually started out pretty quick, but I think they were really overrated. What were they, 4-1 at one point? I thought
Yeah,
they were really
they
overrated
beat
for having
Tampa
that
too
record.
on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, they
But
didn't
yeah,
deserve
they've
that
lost like
record.
4 in a row since then.
Yeah, but they're still solid nonetheless. Really good defense. Next up is the Panthers, who, like Scotty said, really good receiving core, solid franchise quarterback, has just had a bad string of games, but they're still a solid team. And then I have the Broncos, who started off pretty solid and have lost a few since, but I still like them. Drew Lock still has a chance to be good, but he's teetering on the edge of being moved on from.
Mhm. Okay,
Anyways,
so my tier, or do you have more? Sorry, Fletch.
no, next year.
Yeah. So my tier that I put there is I titled it Playoff Hunt. And to be honest with you, this is the worst tier to be in because these are the teams who are not bad teams. They're gonna give you 7-9, 8-8, but they're not good enough to win the Super Bowl, make the playoffs probably, honestly. You know, and you're kind of stuck in limbo where you don't want to rebuild because you have a good team, and so you're stuck waiting, but you're not good enough to actually win a Super Bowl. To me, that tier is the Bears. Again, lost 4 in a row. They're like 5-5 now. Their offense is abysmal. It's horrible to
It's
watch. They can't
terrible.
score points. They're really not that good
Trubisky's
of a
back
team.
too.
Yeah, they need to find the quarterback situation, get that figured out. So, the Bears. Also, I have the Niners. Now, here's the thing about the Niners. Apart from quarterback, this is a Super Bowl caliber roster when healthy. But first off, they have a bunch of injuries. And again, these teams are still in the playoff hunt this year, but I don't really think they're going to make it. The problem, though, even when they're healthy, is their quarterback. And they showed they could make it to a Super Bowl,
Yes, sir.
but I think they're probably going to move on from Jimmy G after this year.
Trey
He's just
Lance.
too inconsistent, makes too many mistakes. They might draft a guy, might take a flyer on a guy like Sam Darnold for a second or third round pick. So we'll see what happens. It's kind of a tough spot without a quarterback, but they've built a really good roster otherwise. I also have Minnesota here, team that's won a couple games in a row, got a really good ground attack, some great receivers. Justin Jefferson's been phenomenal. And they still have a couple nice pieces on defense, even though it's not as good of a defense as it once was. But again, they're just not a good enough team to contend for a Super Bowl. Kirk Cousins has limitations. When they win games, he throws the ball 13 times. It's hard to watch sometimes.
It's true.
Okay.
They need
Also in
Dalvin
this tier,
Cook.
yeah. Also in this tier, the Patriots. Patriots have not very much talent at all on offense. A veteran QB who's played inconsistent but has some nice rushing touchdowns, and a defense that is coached extremely well. But again, with the opt-outs and with Stephon Gilmore hurt, has suffered from a lack of talent. This team as a roster is horrible. Bill Belichick, the GM, has been really, really bad the past couple of years. Traded a second-round pick from Mohamed Sanu. Fortunately, Bill Belichick, the GM, has the benefit of having Bill Belichick, the head coach, to bail him out and get this team to a solid record. Again, I don't think the Pats will make the playoffs. They're going to win 7 to 8 games, though.
It's gonna be
So they're
so
in a tough
weird.
spot. It's hard to say whether they'll move off Cam, especially if they get like the 15th pick. Is that good enough to draft a quarterback? The other two teams in this tier for me, Philadelphia, right? They're still contending for the playoffs, and I don't think they're going to rebuild with Wentz and Peterson, but they've been horrible this year. It's really a mess. They're probably going to get to about 6 wins. And then I also put Atlanta because Atlanta's technically not eliminated, and now that they've moved off of Dan Quinn, this is a talented team. They have pieces. Their
Yeah,
offense can really
they
score.
have so many
And
pieces.
I don't quite think they're going to rebuild, and Raheem Morris is trying to earn this coaching job after this year to get promoted from the interim to the full head coach. So they're going to be competing. They're going to be playing hard the rest of this year. That's why I have them in there.
For sure. So my next year, it's slightly better than playoff hunt. It's more fringe playoff. So like teams that are teetering on the edge of being a good playoff team and just right outside, either due to not quite having the talent or just competitive division or something like that. So teams I have here, the Dolphins, because really I think they're a really good team. I like what their head coach has done. And was it Brian Flores? Is that their head
Yeah,
coach?
Flores,
Yeah.
he's done
I
phenomenal.
love him as a head coach. He's done great things. It just sucks because they have to compete with the Bills, and I feel like the Bills are the standalone best team in the AFC East this year. But fringe playoff team very easily could get a wild card, like very easily. Next up in this year, I have the Cardinals, who it's just it's tough because their division is the hardest in football. Like when all 4 of these teams are healthy and going at full speed, all 4 of these teams could be legit Super Bowl contenders in my eyes.
Yeah.
Like we have the Rams, who was just in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, Niners last year, Seahawks, who were looking like world beaters to start the year, and so it's just a matter of situation. Any other division, the Cardinals are a solid playoff team for me. Next, I have the Titans, who are now tied for first in the division, but second because they don't hold the tiebreaker to
They
the
lost to
Colts.
Indy, yeah.
Yeah, they don't hold the tiebreaker, so they're second, and so it's a pretty tight competition there. That's why they're a fringe playoff team. To begin the year, they were a solid playoff team, but they've sort of fallen. Uh, Rams, same explanation as the Cardinals, really tough division. Then the Raiders, who have to compete with the Kansas City Chiefs twice a year in their division. Luckily, they got 1 victory on them, so that was really impressive. And they look pretty solid. Nelson Aguilar has had a career resurgence in Vegas.
Yeah, he's making some nice plays, man.
That was pretty impressive. His hands aren't made of brick anymore. And then last in this fringe playoff tier, I have the Colts, who, sort of same as Tennessee. It's going to be tight between them for a playoff spot. And who knows, maybe both of them make it. Maybe one of them's a wild card, or both of them. Who knows? 17 playoffs on each side this
Yeah,
year.
they're considering even moving it to 8 teams with the COVID
Ooh,
year, so
I'd like
just
that.
for this season. So yeah. Okay, so is that your tier, Fletch? Your whole
Yep.
tier? All right.
Yes, sir.
So this is a really big tier for me. Don't get mad at me. I have a bunch of teams because I got to the point where I was sitting here like, there are like just about 2 teams that I really think have stood above all the rest. The rest of the teams that I haven't listed are good enough to me where I expect them to make the playoffs or at least be right there. But they just have a flaw here or there where it's like I can't see them winning the Super Bowl. Heck, one of these teams is guaranteed to at least make it to the NFC Championship game. I'll let you know that because my top 2 teams are both from the AFC. So these teams, there's some in here. It's going to sound weird having Cleveland in the same tier as Tampa Bay, but I labeled this tier playoff/contenders, but too flawed to win a Super Bowl. And that's Tampa Bay, Miami, Baltimore, New Orleans, Las Vegas Raiders, Buffalo Bills, Tennessee Titans, Cleveland Browns, Green Bay Packers, Seattle Seahawks, Los Angeles Rams, Indianapolis Colts, and Arizona Cardinals. Really big tier. But all those teams are about 6-3, 6-2, 7-2 type of range. They're all good. But when I look at them,
Yeah.
Tampa Bay, what the heck, man? I would have put them in the Super Bowl caliber tier like 2 weeks ago. They lost 38-3 to the Saints, annihilated. And the Saints have not been particularly impressive this year.
No.
They got destroyed. When Tampa Bay is clicking, they have the talent to be the best team in the league. But there are games where Tom Brady is just incredibly off, and when he's pressured, he can't do anything. I mean, he played the worst game of his life against the Saints, and they lost freaking 38-3. But then they can beat the Packers, who are a really good team, 38-10. So too inconsistent there for Tampa. Miami has won 5 in a row. Really, really good team. But again, rookie quarterback. I'm not sure if they're quite ready to win a Super Bowl. I like where they're trending. Baltimore, they've got all the talent, but they have to prove to me they can win a playoff game. Heck, beat the Patriots, man. It's trending in the wrong direction. It seems like Greg Roman and Lamar Jackson are starting to lose a little bit of their mojo. They can't really run the ball as well. Teams are kind of starting to figure it out and make Lamar throw the ball down the field. And there's some questions I have about Baltimore. Then I have New Orleans. They've got all the pieces too. Can Michael Thomas stay healthy? How much is he going to contribute? And Drew Brees' arm, man. Right now they have Taysom Hill starting this week.
Noodle arm.
I don't know, Taysom, Jameis, Drew Brees. I don't know what's going on there. I don't think they're good enough to win the Super Bowl. They missed the 3-year window.
Nope.
Las Vegas, good team, young players. I don't think Derek Carr and them are ready to win a Super Bowl. Buffalo, same kind of situation. Very good team. They lost to Tennessee 42-16. I can't erase that picture from my head. They have potential, I think, years down the line. They might be a Super Bowl team. Not quite ready this year. Could make like the AFC Championship or some things play out well for them, though. Tennessee. They would have been in a Super Bowl caliber tier a couple weeks back. What the heck happened? An 11-point loss to Cincinnati, 17 points to Indianapolis. They can't really seem to get going, and this defense is terrible. Cleveland. Defense is terrible. Baker Mayfield sucks. Super turnover prone. They've got an incredible edge rusher, great ground attack, really good receivers, but I don't see him winning a Super Bowl. Green Bay. They've got all the tools. Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
It's
and
ridiculous.
Then a good
They have
defense.
the worst run defense in the league. They got mauled by the Vikings.
I know.
They
Their
can't stop
secondary
anybody.
is good, though.
Yeah, I can't get it out of my head, man. They're just the least physical team. Them losing to Tampa 38-10. Them escaping Jake Luton and the Jaguars. Them getting obliterated by the Niners twice last year when Jimmy G threw, 8 passes? I don't see the Packers winning it. Seattle. Russell Wilson's a transcendent player, Hall of Famer. But they have a terrible offensive line. Well, not terrible, but a bad offensive line. Their running backs are always hurt. And they have a historically terrible defense. And they remind me of the 2018
really
Chiefs.
bad.
If Russell Wilson doesn't have in a career great game, they're not winning in the playoffs. The Rams. I like the Rams. Incredible underrated defense this year. The offense has been a little more shaky. When Jared Goff's under pressure, he tends to go haywire. I don't think Goff's going to win him a Super Bowl. Indianapolis. Phillip Rivers. Arizona Cardinals. Indianapolis is a good team. They're just not quite there yet. They're probably going to target QB in the draft some. And the Cardinals. They're good. A lot of their wins have come against Washington and the Jets. And they had a nice win over Seattle. But, again, they're kind of a young team. The defense isn't that great. And Kyler Murray's kind of banged up right now. So I don't see him winning the Super Bowl. They're a good team, though.
Yeah. Is that it?
That's it. That's well. When you say "is that it?" Yeah, it's a lot, but yeah.
All right. So my next tier for me has just got 6 teams. It's my solid playoff team tier. I think these teams are pretty much going to be a shoo-in for the playoffs, but who knows? They still could end up eliminated somehow. So first things first, I got Tampa Bay. Like you said, they can be world beaters when that offense and defense is clicking. When they're
like against Carolina, 46 points.
Yeah, when they're in sync, when everything is just working, they're probably the best team in the NFL. Their ceiling is probably higher than anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And then next, I have Green Bay, who should make it. I believe I'm like 95% sure that they're going to make the playoffs. But, they've just got flaws here and there. Like you said, that run defense is absolutely atrocious. And then next, I have Seattle, who I think is just a tiny notch better than the rest of the teams in the NFC West, just because they have the Russell Wilson factor. He is a world beater. When he's having his best game, you're not going to beat him. When he is at his peak, you will not beat Russell Wilson. Next is Baltimore. Now, I know that they have the Steelers above them, raining heavy down below. Like, on that division, but I still think Baltimore is a really strong team. I still think that they have,
Baltimore can beat everyone except Kansas City,
yeah,
but that's
yeah,
the problem.
they have the capabilities to beat everybody except the Chiefs. That is Lamar's kryptonite, as he said in an interview earlier this year. And then next, I think, is Buffalo, who I think is just the clear number one team in the AFC East. So just by
Although Miami's
circumstance,
rising.
Miami is
So yeah.
definitely on the rise and will, I think, be the best team for years to come after this year. But this year, I'm giving it to Josh Allen and the Bills. And then next, I have the Saints because, well, other than Tampa Bay, their division doesn't really put up that much of a competition. They're pretty much getting 4 kind of free wins. And then, when they're able to play teams like the beat up Niners, then you're going to get enough wins to make it into at least a wild card. But that
Yeah,
quarterback situation is,
They've played down to a ton of competition.
yeah,
Barely beat the Bears. They lost to the Raiders by like 10 points, but then they just obliterate Tampa Bay.
yeah, yeah. It's impressive. They definitely either play up to the level of their competition or play down. They give really good teams a tough fight, but then they also play pretty poorly against some bad teams, other than the 49ers, who they just squashed. But that's because they're playing against a practice squad, so
Yeah.
it's not really a real football game. But anyways, that's my tier. Right there. What's your next tier? Is it just the
My
final one?
final top tier is
Okay,
just Kansas City and Pittsburgh
same.
because Kansas City is the reigning champ. They're 8-1. Outside of an aberration against Las Vegas, they've looked unbeatable this year. They've got the best quarterback on the planet, soon to be the best ever.
Yeah,
They've got
I'm
a
gonna say
defense that's been steadily improving with my boy Steve Spagnuolo from Big Blue, and they have just a ton of weapons on offense. Great play caller. And Pittsburgh, who I thought was going to be good this year, but surprisingly, 9-0. I don't think anybody saw that coming.
Ben
First time in Steelers
Roethlisberger has
history.
had a resurgence.
Yeah,
Like
he's been really
he
good.
is looking like vintage Ben Roethlisberger right now.
Their
Like,
defense is huge, especially in the front seven, and they've got a stout offensive line and some really nice playmakers that have stepped up at receiver. And when you look at Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, those guys are really taking a step forward. So yeah, I think it would be foolish to not put them on that top tier now because nobody's been able to beat them. So even though they've had some close games against teams like Dallas and stuff, they looked really good against Cincinnati, and I think they're the real top
I
competitor with the Chiefs.
I think they're the real deal. I think they're right behind the Chiefs. They're sort of gnawing at the ankle, and I know they technically have the better record, but you just look at the two teams play, and it's pretty obvious. The Chiefs definitely are the best team in the NFL right now, but
Yeah, I'd
they're
pick the Chiefs
followed
over the Steelers too.
they're followed pretty closely by the Steelers. I hope we see that in the AFC Championship game. It'll be a really fun one to watch. I'd like to see a little bit more out of Juju though. I feel like he's been
Yeah, I
pretty
think
quiet.
Juju's a really good number 2,
Yeah,
but he's just not. There's a
he's
lot
not.
more hype around Juju than he is at. Like, there are a ton of receivers that are better than Juju. That's no disrespect to him. He's a great player. But,
Yeah.
like, Terry McLaurin, nobody talks about Terry McLaurin.
Oh my
Okay,
God,
he's
scary Terry
leagues ahead of
leading
Juju.
he's playing like after the catch. He's playing like Jerry
Leads all
Rice.
receivers after the catch. Yeah, he's
He's
ridiculous.
he's ridiculous yards after the catch. He's got what 400 on the year after the catch. I think.
Yeah,
I
I think
just
so.
saw that
Mhm.
today. He's by
That
far first in the
68
NFL.
yarder against my G-Men a couple weeks back.
Yeah, he's scary Terry on the rise. Only good player on the football team. All
All
right.
right. Well, was that your top tier 2, Fletch? Just Pittsburgh and
Yeah,
Kansas City?
just Pittsburgh, KC for the same reasons as you.
All right.
They're
Yeah.
better.
So sounds like we're in agreement there.
Yep.
Let us know what you guys think. Would you rather hear traditional power rankings or more stuff like this, the NFL tiers, breaking it down? We're excited to get back to work, putting out content for you guys. It's been a kind of while, but senior year started up, online school's been an adjustment, and we've had college applications, bunch of stuff going on. But moving forwards, we're gonna be coasting, taking it easy, and doing some podcasts for y'all. So get ready, get your earbuds in, and get hyped because we will be making some videos for you. And
Yes,
thank you for watching. I'm Scott Gevertz here with my boy Fletcher Ferris, representing the Last Word Sports. This has been The Last Word.